The North American Council for Freight Efficiency is a nonprofit organization dedicated to doubling the freight efficiency of North American goods movement. NACFE operates in order to provide an independent, unbiased research organization for the transformation of the transportation industry. Data is critical, and NACFE is proving to help the industry with real-world information for fleets and manufacturers to take action. Hello, my name is Mike Roth, and I am the Executive Director of the NACFE. Today we'll be sharing the findings from a study funded by the International Council for Clean Transportation and conducted by the NACFE and Cascade Sierra Solutions. The study investigated the market barriers to increased adoption of fuel efficiency technologies in the North American freight sector. We will be discussing the motivation for the project, details on how it was conducted, the barriers themselves, some other findings, and we'll close with a few conclusions and recommendations. With high fuel prices affecting us all, and big rig operators maybe the most, the large number of new products being delivered to improve fuel efficiency, investigating why purchasers do or do not buy fuel efficiency options is important. We wanted to reach a broad group of stakeholders with this project. Let's first take a look at some statistics for over-the-road trucking. According to the American Trucking Research Institute, fuel is now the number one cost of operating a Class 8 tractor-trailer in 2012. Third highest is the cost of the equipment. And in the National Academy of Sciences 2010 study on the right, fuel consumption technologies for medium-duty and heavy-duty vehicles, many technologies do exist to improve the fuel consumption benefit by as much as 50% in tractor-trailers. But there is limited widespread adoption of these technologies by real-world fleets. This report addresses the why not. A study team made up of leaders from NACFE and CSS, with support from the ICCT and the Carbon War Room, sought to gain perspectives from all the various stakeholders in the purchasing of these technologies. We targeted lead users, those purchasers and technology suppliers who are on or near the cutting edge of these fuel efficiency technologies. Here is a list of the various stakeholder groups. 6 segments of end users and 5 supply chain firms were interviewed and data collected on various common and unique questions. The goal was to gain insights from all possible perspectives pertaining to Class 7 and 8 tractor specifications for fuel efficiency technologies. In total, the team conducted 29 interviews, many face-to-face, held 1 focus group with truck dealers, conducted internet surveys with 1,892 owner-operators, and attended 3 trucking industry shows. The owner-operator perspective was quite broad and insightful. The team used databases of drivers that existed with Cascade Sierra Solutions and Kevin Rutherford of Let's Truck, who has a network membership of about 16,000 driver owners who focus on efficiency and use Kevin's advice and tools. They were located all over the country. The team's mission was to stay very focused on the barriers, that is, the issues to technology adoption, and no questions were asked concerning possible solutions to those barriers. Let's now move to the findings. The study found 5 primary market barriers. They are lack of credible information, uncertainty around payback time, insufficient reliability, lack of access to capital, and lack of technology availability. And their interrelation is shown in this figure. More credible information would limit the effect of uncertain payback time and insufficient reliability. These concerns limit the access to capital overall, and all of this delays technology development and deployment, leading to the final barrier, lack of technology availability throughout the supply chain. Here we compare the stakeholder group with the amount of consensus around the various barriers found in the study. There was uniform consensus on the lack of credible information and uncertainty of payback. In many of the questions asked of the supply chain, they were directed to answer as if they were an end user. For instance, when we asked what is the required payback period in months needed by end users to buy these technologies, we said answer as you think a fleet would answer. The final 3 barriers had less consensus. Large private and lease fleets generally Larger user companies did not have the issue of availability of capital as the other groups did. Unacceptable reliability was a larger issue for the end users than the suppliers, but they recognized the barrier to some degree. And finally, the lack of availability barrier was not seen as big an issue with the tractor and trailer OEMs and the owner-operators. Owner-operators due to the fact that they buy mostly used trucks. The first finding is uncertainty around payback time. Throughout this presentation, you will see a quote across the top and some data on each slide. The detailed report offers hundreds of quotes and more data, so I would encourage you to look and download that report. Payback in months is the universal metric for deciding to buy a technology on new equipment or to retrofit it on old. With trade cycles averaging around 5.5 to 9 years, the payback time required was around 24 months, as reported from the fleets. Interesting is that the supply chain reported a lower payback period than the fleets. We found this encouraging as they are developing and offering the products for the end users. The team identified many inconsistencies with the payback calculation itself and concluded that in many cases the calculation may be conservative in recognizing the benefits of some technologies. The absolute payback is important, but as well, its uncertainty can cause lack of commitment to adopt. Once an end user is convinced to buy a technology, the capital required can be a hurdle. New truck costs have increased due to emissions compliance costs and the procurement of other features such as driver amenities and safety. These features compete for the upfront equipment expense allowed on a new truck purchase. Here we show responses to a question around how important various attributes are on the purchase decision making. Fuel economy is second. Due to the relative short life cycle and life remaining in the equipment sold by the first owning fleet, resale value can have a pronounced effect on adoption decisions. But 3 large fleets with trade-in cycles of around 5 years stated that resale value was becoming not very important. When asked more detailed questions, they stated that fuel costs are so high that they will take the risk of resale and/or will keep the trucks longer if the used truck market does not value them. Credible information for decision-making was an overarching and pronounced barrier. The study team chose to split this into 2 components: information early in a technology's life to verify that it works and meets payback expectations, and later as it is shared throughout the industry and the adoption is completed on a particular technology. In the early stages, fleets all seem very skeptical that the technology will deliver for them and their unique duty cycles, operating environment, and business model. This quote, "We only trust ourselves," summarizes most of the interviews. When the team asked, when researching a technology, how do you value the information from these various sources, themselves and other fleets ranked very high. They identified third-party organizations highly, but couldn't confidently say that any is doing this very well. The manufacturers, OEMs, and EPA SmartWay followed. This creates great waste in the system because each fleet views the decision-making as unique, and identification, analysis, and testing is done over and over again. After a technology has received a level of adoption later in its life, the sharing of information becomes very word of mouth, and history shows that it can take years and even decades to achieve the technology's long-term adoption level. This quote about understanding and then valuing a technology was particularly insightful and describes a large population of buyers. When asked reasons why they don't buy, the bottom 3 on this chart were particularly interesting. There was no outside validation, testing was inadequate, and the data was not convincing. These 3 reasons suggest that the fleet believes in the technology but has inadequate information to make a decision to purchase or retrofit it on their trucks and/or trailers. This highlights the barrier of credible information later in a technology's life. Also, the owner-operator survey showed where they received information on the technologies. They are highly dependent on truck radio and magazines, the internet, while nearly 2/3 are either highly or confident with the questions on the technologies. They believe in the technology's work, but are unsure where to get the data to make a final decision. The next finding is that insufficient reliability is a barrier to purchasing new technology. The most efficient truck is worth little if it's not running. Industry leaders shared that the reliability of some of the new developments in trucking have not been acceptable. Many interviewees pointed to issues specifically with emissions equipment introduced in 2002 through 2010 as having driven a significant increase in tractor downtime. Other comments included that as new technology emerges, many suppliers appear, not all with acceptable quality, and it may take years for the best to survive. Examples included APUs and trailer side skirts. In these situations, poor reliability performance can eliminate or slow a good technology's adoption. End users understand that they are part of the reliability growth process, but are concerned with the performance of early prototypes and shared they are less likely to be involved in new product demonstrations in the future. The last barrier is one of lack of technology availability. This was not a barrier gleaned from prior studies, but was shared with us across the stakeholder groups. Fleets are frustrated when they investigate and choose to purchase a technology, only to find that they cannot buy it from one or more of their tractor or trailer preferred suppliers. As this quote stated, they either choose to delay purchasing the technology or buy it from another OEM, potentially adding other unexpected costs or problems. A short period of time for all builders to engineer, test, and launch a new technology is expected. But for those that are appearing to be more on their way to high adoption, interviewees said it just takes far too long, oftentimes a decade. This flow of technology life cycle was developed as the study team investigated this issue in more detail. Much redundancy of activity contributes to this issue of extended product application. Over the course of the project, other findings appeared to the study team, including these stated here. I will now go over each briefly, with much more detail provided in the report. Although this study focused on the barriers rather than the technologies, participants were asked which ones offer the most short-term potential. They included tractor aero, tires, telematics, and idle reduction. The other four here also are perceived as successful, but contain possibly more challenges with their adoption, including driver acceptance, resale value, and tractor-to-trailer ratios. Another finding was around driver turnover. Driver attraction and retention can impact the choice fleets make around adopting technologies. Here you see two charts on retention of drivers. The first to the left is for for-hire truckload carriers from the ATA, and the one to the right is the NPTC private fleet turnover in their benchmarking study. These are graphed on the same scales, so as you can see, the for-hire drivers have about 100% turnover, while the private fleets are about 20%. We found that for-hire fleets overwhelmingly adopt passive technologies, whereas private fleets will investigate technologies that engage the driver in taking action. 3 additional areas were uncovered. Perspectives from the industry stakeholder groups are shared in the report with respect to government regulations, many of which point to the movement now to greenhouse gas regs rather than the focus on pure criteria pollutants. The rebound effect, the premise that lower energy expenses drives consumers to use more, for instance, more efficient vehicles cost less per mile for fuel, which can spur some vehicle owners to drive longer distance or even buy a larger or second car. In this study, all end users were asked this, and due to the high data collection on fleets, tractor-trailers, and the management of out-of-route miles, trailer capacity, empty backhauls, etc., No one agreed that significant MPG improvements of tractor-trailers would encourage any rebound effect in trucking. Finally, due to the large amount of owner-operators taking the surveys, the team offered some interesting findings from this group. For instance, 49% of them own their own trailers, and 74% would replace their tractor with a newer used one rather than buy a new one. More details are available in the report. The conclusions of this study on adoption of fuel efficiency technologies for Class 7 and 8 tractors and trailers are shown. In conclusion, our recommendations. Due to the fact that this study only looked at the barriers and the problems, it suggested that further studies to find solutions to address these barriers would be important. Focus on the lack of credible information as it impacts all remaining barriers could have the most traction. We should consider practical and credible methods for validating technologies and disseminating the data, and pursue policy if they can effectively promote technologies that deliver economic benefits and limit their adverse consequences. Thank you for your review of these slides of this important barriers project. The report can be downloaded at www.nacfe.org.